And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am J.C. Kenney, and I tell you what, folks, you can thank us all later for our guest that we have today, because just to not let you know, you get smarter watching our show. You may recall just a few weeks ago, we had a lawyer on, then we had a judge on. Today, we've got an actual live doctor on. And so, I just think, it's like the brain cells are going to be multiplying while we're getting bookish here, Sarah. So let's get bookish.
I think that is a perfect way to cue things up. We have a fascinating guest for you folks today. We are joined by Dr. Michael J. McLaughlin, who is here talking about his brand new psychological thriller that is coming this April. It's going to be available April 14th. It is called No Harm Intended. And Michael, I should have asked you this before the show, but if you have a copy of the book or anything to hold up to show that beautiful, haunting cover.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Guys. This is an Amazonian adventure that is made to be a movie, I tell you. It is full of suspense. It is full of family drama. We've got a social media influencer thrown into the mix. There's just so much going on, and we're so excited to be able to dive in. But before we do, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to talking to you. This is great.
Before we kind of dive into your body of written work, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind taking us on like a little tour of your life, because it's not every day that you have a plastic surgeon, hand surgeon who decides to give that all up and start writing these adventure books that you've been writing. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Well, ever since I was a little kid, basically, I've loved to read and I've loved to write. I started off reading the Hardy Boys mysteries and then moved on to Agatha Christie's and read pretty much all of those, I think, when I was pretty young. And I wrote my first collection of short stories when I was 10 years old. It was called the collection of Ken, Bob, and Company. And it was basically Hardy Boys-esque kind of collection of short stories. I think most of the stories were ripped off straight from the Hardy Boys series. Mm-hmm. So I've loved to write and read since I was a little kid. I also then loved medicine from a pretty early age. So by the time I got to high school, I decided that I wanted to be a surgeon. And so everything I did for the next however many years was all dedicated towards that very focused, kind of laser focused idea of becoming a surgeon. And so I was a pre-med, went to medical school, did 6 years of residency training and fellowship training in general surgery, plastic surgery, and then hand and microsurgery. So I spent about, after college, 10 years going into my surgical field. And all along the way, I had I saw some friends I hadn't seen in a while, some childhood friends recently, and they were joking that I was always scribbling in a journal. So I was always keeping ideas. I was always writing down story ideas, character ideas, quotes, just about anything that I found interesting, entertaining, or worth repeating or someday writing down for people. So I always had that moving along in tandem as I was preparing to become a surgeon. Then I started my hand surgery practice, and I only stayed in practice for about 4 years because remember, I'd been training all this time, so really I had a good amount of surgery experience, but I decided I wanted to do something else and really had no idea what that was initially. And my first thought, my first thought was, all right, I want to be a novelist. I'm going to be a novelist. That's what I want to do. I was a huge fan at that time of Robin Cook, of Michael Crichton. So I had a few of these doctor physician authors that were spectacular and very successful as role models. But I got to this point where I was about to leave practice, and I had a family, I had a wife, two kids, and another child on the way, and I thought, I don't know if I can make a quick go of this and make a large income and kind of fill in the gap from what I was making as a surgeon at the time. And so I looked for other ideas, and what I found though was a great combination of two passions of writing and medicine. I ended up going into scientific medical writing, working in the pharmaceutical industry. And I worked for a couple of companies briefly, and then started a company called Peloton Advantage with a business partner. And we grew that for about 15 to 18 years or so. And that was very successful. And we had a great group of people, an unbelievable team. And we were able to then sell the company. And along the way, I'd written a couple of books. I wrote short stories. I was always writing. But at that point, with everything else I was doing, with the family, with the job, I'm sure you could relate. I was writing at 11 o'clock to midnight sometimes, or trying to wake up
Yep.
early, or trying to sneak it in somewhere. But I was always writing in addition to what I was doing with my day job. But then when we sold the company, I left the company in 2020, and we were fully sold by 2022. And at that time, I started to write fiction full time, and that's been great. So that's really been the third phase of my career now, is full time fiction writing, and mostly I'm writing thrillers. I'm still writing some short stories on the side. I kind of mostly entertain myself, I think, and my family, with short stories about our family and things like that are more humorous, to kind of balance out the horrible the horrible things I write about, and my terrifying things in my thrillers. But so I enjoy kind of a mix of writing now, and this is really one of the highlights of my career.
That is
Well, I just
amazing.
that's an amazing career, and first thing I want to say is thank you for the time you spent, as a surgeon taking care of folks. I know I've been on the receiving end of surgeon services not too long ago, so appreciate all that. But one of the things that I want to I you mentioned was the word passion. And you just chatting with you, and then before the show, you sound like you are really enjoying this gig right now. Could you talk about us a little bit? There had to be some heavy moments when you're thinking, okay, I really want to follow my passion, and maybe all this time and money that I've spent in medical school and as a surgeon isn't that. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what your process was to bring us here?
Sure. Well, it was for me, I guess it was two steps. The first step was leaving my medical practice, my surgical practice, and that was a huge move, obviously, and had its various risks associated with at the time. But I got a lot of support from my family, and knew that was the right move for me and my family to make that transition. So that was crucial, that we were all in that together. Uh, and basically it's funny, people back then especially would say, well, do you miss surgery? Do you miss it? And I just kind of keep moving forward and keep trying to figure out where I am today and what's next, rather than looking back too much. And I look back fondly on a lot of the experience that I had as a surgeon, the same way I look back fondly on a lot of the experience I had as a business owner. But I'm happy where I am today, and I'm happy in how I'm moving forward from where I am today. The I was always writing on the side, so I think eventually I was going to get to this point, I think, where I was writing fiction, where I was writing more creatively, and but everything I did before the point where I made the more recent transition really is helping me tremendously as I move forward. The business acumen that I have from having grown a business, as you know, writing is a business
It
for,
is,
you
yeah.
know, on many levels, and it's certainly a business for each author that's involved in it. So I think the business experience is helping. The discipline that I learned from being a surgeon is helping, and and it's interesting, you know, as a surgeon, I think about this a lot. I think, well, how does being a surgeon help what I do today? And I think when you're a surgeon, you really you get very regimented. You really have to learn a process. It's very important. You have to stick to it. You understand the risks of not sticking to the process. And what's really interesting is that you are constantly aware of the various things that could go wrong at any given time, and you're already prepared to prevent them from going wrong. But if you get anywhere close to those, you know how to steer clear of them. So you're always thinking about what could go wrong. And as a thriller writer, that's the fun of being a thriller writer is I see things that happen, sometimes frightening things, sometimes not frightening things, and then I think, well, you know what? I wonder if something could go wrong here and what it would look like. And it's a horrible thing to have in your head sometimes, but you know, it's but that's what it is. You know, I know we'll be talking about the my latest book, and that's another great example of, oh, okay, there's something happening here. Maybe it's not going so wrong, but oh, I have a good idea for how things could really take a twist for the worst. And then how do you get back out of it, or do you get back out of it? And so I feel like I apply a lot of those learnings with what I do today.
I think I just had like a light bulb moment go off in my brain of like, oh, that's why, you know, both JC and I are mystery writers. So murder mysteries, like we're often, you know, figuring out ways to kill people. And
Yep.
as somebody who I watch a lot of true crime, and I'm always like, I always feel like I'm thinking like, what could go wrong in this situation? And usually I turn it into my stories, but I like to think that it helps me be prepared in life for all the
Yeah.
things that could happen. But speaking of no harm intended, we have
Yes.
folks chiming up in our chat, Michael. I want to take a moment to say hi to everybody. We have Farmhouse Reader saying, hi, everyone, and great title. I definitely want to talk about that title and the multi layers of meanings that that I at least thought that it had. We have DHBA saying good afternoon. We have Susan saying hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. And we have Regina, the Southernista, saying happy Tuesday, everybody. So, folks, welcome. Thank you for being here live with us. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. But Michael, tell us a little bit about the number one, the setup of No Harm Intended. We don't want to spoil things too much for our audience members. So tease us a little bit about what we can expect in this new thriller that you have coming out on April 14th.
Sure. So the setting is the Peruvian Amazon, and there are some people right at the beginning that are on a tour boat, a small tour boat down there. Picture kind of Death on the Nile, you know, small, few staterooms, that kind of thing. And and the people on the boat are obviously it takes enough money to travel there and pay for this cruise and everything. So the people there are focused on the fact that the Wi-Fi is not really working too well, and the air conditioning in their stateroom isn't all that great, and they're really enjoying the scenery, but they're still kind of in their home frame of mind. And then what happens is some local villagers down there whose land is being destroyed by oil spills from a pipeline coming through and near their land. They are upset that not enough is being done about it. And in order to get attention for their cause, they siege this tour boat with traditional weapons and garb, and take these people hostage and bring them back to their village. And so the book follows primarily three of those characters who were on the boat initially, and we follow their points of view as we go through the story. and one is a suspended Chicago cop, and she is trying to kind of escape all of the pressure of her current situation back home, and brings her two young children onto this cruise. And so that's one of the characters, and she escapes the initial attack, but ends up in the rainforest at night, which is terrifying, especially to someone who's not familiar with it, of course. And she's there with her kids trying to just stay alive. And she's also on the run as the story starts. And then there's another character who is a very young doctor, and he's just graduated from med school. And he's one of these people who's many generations of ancestors, his dad, his grandfather, they were all physicians, and he kind of fell into it and didn't have the passion to go into it, but kind of fell into it and was nudged into it and that kind of thing. And he's struggling with that. And he's someone who kind of barely made it through med school because he wasn't taking it as seriously as somebody who had the passion for it. And he ends up in the middle of the rainforest in this village, and he's trying to tap into whatever medical knowledge he's retaining, with almost no supplies and nothing that he's used to back at home. And he's trying to help some of the passengers who've gotten sick and injured and that type of thing. And then the other is a brand new first ever tour guide from Peru, from Lima, and she's now down in the Amazon. And this poor woman can, barely keep count of the tourists as they're moving around. She's trying to count everybody, and she's very appropriately, I think, kind of nervous and insecure. It's her first week on the job on this tour, and sure enough, her whole group gets taken hostage, and then she's in a position where she has to kind of shine, and she's up against all kinds of issues, and she's the de facto leader of this group, and can translate the easiest and everything. So she kind of falls into this leader of the hostage group position, and we kind of follow her and see how she deals with that over time.
Oh, I can't imagine that being like your first rodeo, and you're just like, oh gosh, that added stress there's just so much tension in this book, in a good way, in like the edge of your seat tension, and that one of them is just like, oh gosh, poor Lydia.
Yeah, it was like my first cruise, and they ended up being held captive. Oh yeah. Yeah, I felt so bad for her. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about No Harm Intended, if you all aren't aware, out April 14th. We may be mentioning that a few more times during the show, by the way, so you all know what to do. Mark your calendars now. Is that you've got so many moving pieces that, there's so many things going on, and I was thinking that as a whodunit writer, the way I tell my stories is like, I'll kind of put my arm around somebody and like, okay, let's come along and kind of walk down this path together, kind of at a leisurely pace, looking for clues. And then we've got somebody like you who writes thrillers who's like, okay, I'm grabbing you by the wrist. We're going to run down here in maybe 15 different directions at once until we find, until we get to the end. And so, you've got so much going on. Can you talk about maybe the challenges of how you keep those pieces together going in a way that makes sense and keeps us engaged at the same time?
Sure. So, we talk about plotters and pantsers, right? And I've written a couple of books where I've been a pantser. I fly by the seat of my pants. I figure out a hook, and then I try and figure out what happens next, and then eventually I need to figure out where I'm headed. But, I've written a couple of books like that. With this one, I really more methodically organize this. I actually worked with a book coach on it, which was very helpful. And with these, it ends up being another point of view character who gets woven in later too, who was not on the boat originally, but because there were these 4 storylines, and I needed to make sure that I did weave them together properly, what I did was I created an Excel spreadsheet, And I had, if you imagine the left, the rows are chapter numbers, and then the
Okay.
columns are each character. I went, chapter one is going to be this character, and here are the couple of things that are going to happen. Chapter two is going to be this character, here are the couple of things. So I actually filled in a spreadsheet so that I could then follow it. And if I wanted to, I could then take one character and very quickly look and say, okay, for the doctor, here I can now see the however many chapters, I don't know, 15 or so chapters. I can see what happens to him and whether that piece is being paced properly. And I can see what's happening to the tour guide, and I can see what's happening to the other characters, and make sure that their story is properly paced, but also that I'm telling the overall story with a kind of interwoven proper sequence and pacing. And it's tricky. The more people you add in, the trickier it gets. And I think for probably for an author and for a reader, four kind of feels to me like it's getting toward the maximum. But there are some books with more.
Yeah, and the I have never heard that visual of the Excel spreadsheet. I think is so creative in the way
Yeah.
that there are so many tools out there that we can use. However, we figure out how to use them. I, in a million years, would never have thought to use Excel to help me with my creative writing. And so, and I know that we will have some viewers that listen to this and be like, Excel, Sarah, like, why haven't you been using Excel? See, I told you you could use it. And I think those listeners know who they are. But so you have a lot of these different characters that you're managing and coming up with, enough of their backstory to make them feel like filled in people that that they're coming. They're on vacation. They have lives outside of this intense adventure that they're having. One thing I was curious about, Michael, the suspended Chicago cop. I was curious what was the decision, I guess, behind having her be suspended from her position? Because she could have just been, I'm going on vacation with my kids, and this is where we're going. Was there, what was the purpose behind having this kind of angst back home that she's dealing with? How does that filter into kind of the challenges that she's presented in the series of events that they have?
That's a great question. And I discuss D a lot with my beta readers. So D is faced with incredibly difficult decisions very early in the book. And
Yeah.
and there are I've gotten different types of feedback on the decisions she makes. To me, she has completely no-win situations, and she's trying
Yeah.
to figure out some kind of solution. And she's got to decide on the spot as quickly as possible with basically, her instincts, what she's going to do in those moments. And I think it's easy to look back at the decisions she makes shortly afterwards, or even a little later on in the book, and think, man, she made the worst decisions. How did this happen? And to me, I feel like it's more complicated than that.
Oh, yeah.
She's on the fly with life and death, trying to figure out what's the best possible solution here when there's none. And so I thought that it would make those decisions, the complexity of those decisions, and the emotion for her and the challenge of those decisions even more difficult if she had a backstory where she had made decisions that might have caused death of a partner, which is what the backstory is, and that's why she's suspended and being investigated. It's not for immoral behavior. It's not for unethical behavior or something like that. She's being investigated for essentially incompetence, I guess, for lack of a better word. I see her challenge early on in the beginning of her arc, her character arc, as being too impulsive. that this backstory is an impulsive backstory. Did impulsivity cause a problem? Did it not? And in those moments when she's with her kids in the beginning, she's got to make such quick decisions. So is her impulsivity helping her or hurting her in those moments? And I think as the book goes on, hopefully we see some of that kind of evolve.
And so, speaking of the book, since we only have a few minutes to go, like we said, it's out April 14th. Where can folks find it? Is it available basically for pre-order everywhere, or where should people look for it?
Right now, it's the ebook is available for pre-order, so people today can go order the book. And the paperback does not get released, and the ebook formally is not released until April 14th. So anybody who does the pre-order now will get it dropped into their Kindle, I think, by Amazon on the 14th. And anyone who wants the print book, like something to hold in their hands, can order it on the 14th. So that's basically it. So yeah, hopefully people enjoy it.
And I don't think we've highlighted, we talked about this earlier, but I think we need to highlight it on our stream. But this is inspired by a true story. And so we need to learn a little bit about the true story behind how this book came to be, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So everyone always asks how stories come to us, and they come in different ways. And my wife and I did a fantastic trip down to Peru in 2022. And we went to various places all around, some of the key sites around the country. And one of the parts of the trip was to do a cruise for 6-7 days on the Amazon and the two main tributaries leading into the Amazon. And it was an amazing trip. The wildlife is like nothing else. The remoteness of it, the vastness of the Amazon are all just amazing. And we loved this trip, and we got home, and 1 week later, the people who were on tour boats just like ours right in the area that we were in, so it easily could have been our tour boat, were taken hostage by local villagers protesting what was one of hundreds of oil spills that take place down in the Amazon and have taken place over the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years or so. And the people who took them hostage had intended no harm and really wanted the publicity for their cause. And so within they came onto these boats, they took them hostage, but within 20 to 48 hours, everyone was released. Nobody was harmed. There was no intent of harming anybody. And what I found fascinating about that story was that the tourists who were taken hostage then started to post on social media for their captors' cause. They were talking about they were talking about how well they were being treated and how horrible the conditions were from the oil spills down there, and how someone needed to do something about it. So that's my other character, the doctor's girlfriend, Meadow, kind of comes from that idea, and so she and others are within my story are actually trying to do that a bit and to kind of help their captors, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, and it took me a while to realize that I had a story there, but it kind of percolated a bit, and I thought about it a fair amount, and then I realized that to be in a situation like those people on the tour boats and be in a place that you really don't know anything about, honestly, and have people come on board and take you hostage would be terrifying. But then even if the people who took them hostage intended no harm for them, I thought, well, I bet something could go really, really wrong with that. And I threw in a total twist and a series of reveals that happen in the book where the captors completely lose control of the situation, and things go from bad to worse.
Oh, and folks, you'll have to read it to find out on April 14th. Michael, this has been a fascinating conversation. Went by way
Yes.
too quickly for us to cover everything that we wanted to chat about, but this was absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. As you kind of prepare for the release and the launch of No Harm Intended, if folks want to follow along with you, are there any other events that they can sign up for? Any shout outs that you want to give, please feel free to do so.
Sure. Probably the best place to find most of those things is on my website. It's McLaughlinBooks.com. And I'm on social media pretty much everywhere. I do a lot of Instagram and Facebook primarily, and it's at McLaughlin Books. And also, people can sign up for my newsletter. The easiest place to find it is on the website, and they can kind of follow my journey, which is the approach of the newsletter. Mm-hmm. And I'll be doing a bunch of my speaking events and signing events are also listed on the website. So that's probably the easiest place to find them all.
Excellent. And I know that you had mentioned Robin Cook and Michael Crichton earlier as being inspirations. Any books, movies, TV shows that you're watching recently that you can suggest to our audience members that have been keeping you entertained lately?
Sure. You know what? We've been watching a lot of The Lincoln Lawyer and Bosch. So I've read some Michael Connelly, but now I've watched a lot of Michael Connelly on TV. So those have been great. And probably one of my favorite authors now is S.A. Cosby, Sean Cosby, he is fantastic. And I just read King of Ashes. So I think I may be caught up, although I think he has a book coming out soon again. But he's fantastic. So, and I've gotten to meet him at Thriller Fest, which was really a joy. He's a special guy.
He is. Yeah, he's amazing. Sarah, what do you got for us this week?
We're still powering through the X-Files in TV land, but listening wise, there is a program called The Binge, which they drop a true crime story at the beginning of each month that you can just binge listen to. And this month is so interesting. It's about a woman named Susan Galbraith who she was basically she was living out a cozy mystery dream of, there was a murder in her town. She took it upon herself to solve the case, and somebody was put away in prison and all of this stuff. And they're like, oh, she's a hero. But then to come to find out that she totally orchestrated so much of the evidence that she provided, and it was a twisted cozy mystery. So I'm very much loving that right now and listening to that. So I recommend it. It's The Binge. The season's called My Mother's Lies. So JC, any recommendations that you're going through on vacation mode?
Yes. So vacation mode means reading by the pool, and reading by the pool means Late Checkout by Alan Orloff. He is going to be one of our live bookish, our live guests at Malice Domestic here in a couple weeks. And it's a really interesting traditional mystery. That's all I'm going to say because I'm still fairly early in it, but it's got me totally hooked. And so Late Checkout by Alan Orloff is my recommendation for y'all.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, again, Michael, thank you so much for being here and for joining us and sharing some of your time. We wish you the very best with your book release. This is, again, folks, No Harm Intended is out April 14th, available now for ebook pre-order. And of course, thank you to our wonderful audience members who joined us live. And if you're watching after the fact, if you could give us a like and a subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. We are working our way towards our 1,000 subscriber goal. And any help along the way that we can get, we always appreciate. So we will see you next week for another episode. But until then, folks, stay bookish. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.